And most brokers, most people that are helping folks sell are focused, and rightly so, focused on getting that EBITDA as high as possible and getting that valuation as high as possible. The challenge that you're pointing to is, well, what do you do about the tax implications? Or should you be rolling 30%? Or should you be rolling 5%? Or where are they in their investment thesis or the fund's life cycle? Is this a quick 2 to 3 year cycle, or is this a 7-year cycle? Do you see yourself working for these people for a long period of time? Also, you don't get a pick when they sell. They sell when they're ready to sell. That's why they own 51%. What specifically are you going through in that framework when you're trying to decide how much should someone roll? How much should someone take out? What are some of those core pillars that you look at when you're trying to make that decision?
So I think about it 2 ways. There's a personal component, and then there's just a business component. Okay, so let's start with the business component. And you touched on a few of these. So if you're being acquired by a private equity firm, you should be doing as much diligence on which private equity firm is acquiring you, especially if you're rolling equity into that private equity backed company that's acquiring you. Like, that should be your mission of research, more research than you've ever done on anything in your life. Okay, because you're going to be living with that owner, right? And so some of the components, the key components that can influence how much you're going to roll and who you're going to sell to would be, what is the life cycle of the fund that is acquiring you, right? So a private equity fund, they will have multiple different verticals, let's say, in that fund. They may have a lawn and landscape. They may have a cleaning roll up. They may have, a roofing roll up, right? So is that fund new? Meaning, was it launched and the capital was raised in the last year or two? Or is it year 7 of a 10-year fund? That's a very big difference in terms of how much capital or how much growth you could expect from your rolled equity. Okay, so if you are the first lawn and landscape acquisition in a new private equity fund, and you are the platform acquisition, by definition, you're the first, then that is an opportunity to roll a lot of equity into that company that's acquiring you, to then participate for a long duration of time in the growth of that company. So you're getting the expertise of the operating capabilities. You're getting all of the future acquisitions that are likely to be done at much lower valuation multiples, which over time is going to accrue more value to you and the equity that you rolled. That's a very different scenario than where you're the 20th acquisition in year 7, and they're saying you should roll 49%, right? They probably wouldn't say that, to be honest. They probably just say, we're not going to roll any because we're so close to exiting anyway that you're not likely to make a whole lot of money from that equity roll. I mean, that would be the honest thing to say anyway, right?
Right.
And so those are sort of the two ends of the spectrum in terms of what type of money you are likely to make if you roll equity, based on the characteristics of just the life cycle of the fund and the life cycle of the businesses that are being acquired. Okay. There's also all of the due diligence that you need to do on the private equity firm and potentially the managers that are operating that business that are acquiring you. Okay. There's a whole lot of acquisitions they've likely made over the courses of their careers. And I'm sure that they have a reputation that's been earned one way or another. Okay. And so being able to do that research on that private equity firm, I think, is also a key piece. And then there's the personal side. Okay. We mentioned there's the business side and there's the personal side. So on the personal side, sometimes it comes down to just, hey, if I sell for 50 million and, I roll a certain amount, a certain percent, I know that even if that turns to 0, the rolled equity, which is highly, highly unlikely, but I know if that even turns to 0, I'm good. Okay. I know because we ran the numbers, we ran the taxes, we ran the investments. I know that with this, let's say 30 million, I know that I can fund my lifestyle, spend $1 million for the rest of my life and have no worries. And my money's likely still going to grow. Okay. And so that's a big piece of the personal component. But what's interesting is that a lot of times when people get to those numbers, they say, well, if I'm going to roll a lot of equity into this private equity backed company, shouldn't I just kind of do it myself and keep going on my own? because I could grow the business. I'm in control. So why am I going to actually keep a bunch of equity when I could just do it myself, right? And I see the validity to both arguments, although I am a big believer at some point taking some money off the table and reducing your risk, setting your family up for life, because as excited as we are and as positive as we are about the trades and about the lawn and landscape business, things happen that are out of our control and are unforeseen, which could cause value to be destroyed.